Hello, welcome back. This is More to the Story. I'm your host, Janna Maron. In addition to this podcast, I also publish a literary arts magazine publishing creative nonfiction and visual art. That's called Under the Gumtree. You can find out more about Under the Gumtree at underthegumtree.com, including how to submit and have your work considered for being published, as well as subscription options. And your subscription directly supports the work of the artists and writers that we publish by helping us stay in publication and continue to provide an outlet for these writers to find a home for their work. So head on over to underthegumtree.com to check that out. I'm also a book coach and editor for women writing true stories in whatever form of nonfiction that takes. And I started saying whatever form of nonfiction that takes because it doesn't have to be exclusively memoir. Yes, I have a lot of clients who have written and published memoirs, but I have also recently started taking on clients that are doing prescriptive nonfiction books. And if you're curious to know more about what that is, I'm going to get into it a little bit today. Not into super depth because I have a couple of previous episodes on that topic of genre. If you go back in the podcast archive, you'll find an episode on genre as well as on outlines and when and why and how I recommend outlines for which types of books and why I don't recommend them for memoir. Those two episodes are back to back, and they talk all about the difference between the types of subgenres of nonfiction, including what makes a book prescriptive. So head on back into the archive to look for those episodes. But you can find out more about the work that I do with clients at morethestory.co. And if you're unsure of what you even need for your project, the best place to start is with a free 15-minute call with me. I call that a diagnosis call because we get on the phone. Yes, I call you on the telephone. It is not a Zoom call. It is a telephone call because I like to make it quick, not quick, but I like to make it easy and accessible so we don't have to both be in front of our computer. I can call you in a easy way that isn't, let me set up my computer, let me sit down, let me make sure I look okay. And you don't have to be at home in front of your computer to take a phone call either. So trying to get back to some old-fashioned human connection here with a phone call. What do you know? The original technology of connection, right? Am I right? And I'm excited to announce that this year, I'm shifting the focus on my business a little bit, and I'm going to start offering in-person retreats. I've been talking about it for a little while, and I'm really feeling myself drawn to in-person experiences. I have the space to be able to host those experiences right here at my own home in Sacramento, California, Northern California. So if you're not local, that's okay. It just means a little bit of travel, and I get it. That can be cumbersome, that can be burdensome, but we can talk about what that looks like and how I'm starting to support clients in a way that I feel is going to be way more catalyzing. And I say that because we make such incredible progress in person that you are then set up for success to go back home and continue the work and the momentum that we have built together in person. And if you want ongoing support after that, yes, that is available. However, it's only available if you first come to a retreat and work with me in person. So that's kind of how I'm starting to shift things this year. I don't have any dates to announce yet. So what you can do if you're interested is head on over to morethestory.co/retreats, and there's a wait list. So you just sign up for the wait list and you will be notified. You'll be notified as soon as I have dates to announce. But looking at probably minimum of two retreats this year, one in the spring, one in the fall. And they're going to be very intimate, limited to 3 or 4 people max, intentionally, so that we can do deep dive work with each person while we're together. And then, of course, like I said, set you up for success to head back home and continue the work and build on the momentum of being together in person. So those two links again are morethestory.co/book diagnosis and morethestory.co/retreats. And if you want to talk to me about the retreats, that book diagnosis call is also a great opportunity to do that. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about on that call. Yes, it's only 15 minutes long, but the goal of that call is to point you in the right direction. Like, we'll talk about the retreats if you want to talk about the retreats. And I can also say, hey, I don't think that's the best fit for you, and here's why. Or yes, absolutely, because you're ready to hit the ground running. So let's get you signed up right away. And we're going to make more progress over the course of 3, 4, 5 days, however long the retreat is, than we can make even in 6 months, spreading out the time that we're working together over 6 months. I just happen to know that that's how I work, and that's how my energy works, because I have been spending a lot of time learning much more in depth on how I operate at my best and highest capacity in a way that can have the biggest, greatest impact on you, the people that I work with, the people that I serve, whether or not you sign up to work with me one-on-one or just listen to the podcast. I'm learning so much more about how I show up and how I affect and impact the people that I work with. And I'm learning that I have a much bigger, greater, more catalyzing effect when I can get people in person to start. So that's why I'm starting to make these shifts. It's going to be better for me, but ultimately better for you as well, which is exciting. It's exciting for me to think about, okay, what am I going to see happen this year when I start to really embrace this as the way that I work better and the way that I want to show up in the world. I hope that I can keep going here okay. I need to check a few things in the background here because I just got a notification on my computer that my storage disk is almost full. And I am afraid that might spontaneously cut off my recording here because it needs to save this recording as soon as I'm done. So I've been doing a lot with video and audio on the computer lately, and the computer itself is almost 12 years old and it's slow. It's a workhorse, but it is slowing down. And I need to clear off some of those big files, I think. Maybe I'll do that as soon as I'm done talking here. Okay, enough of that little side trail rabbit hole rambling. What I want to talk about today is I'm taking a break this week on the client interviews that I've been doing because I do still have another 4 or 6 of them queued up and ready to release over the next several weeks. But it's the new year. It's January. Happy New Year. Happy 2026, if I didn't already say it at the top of the episode. And I wanted to start out with a solo episode to just get you oriented and get you thinking about, okay, it's the new year. This is the time that people typically recommit and say, okay, I didn't do it last year, so I'm really going to do it this year. This year is really going to be the year that I'm going to finally prioritize, finally make time for, finally sit down and write that book. I've been wanting to write that book for years and years and years. I keep saying I'm going to do it. This is going to finally be the year that I'm going to do it. It's a new year, January. I'm going to commit. Yes. Ugh. And I hate to break it to you, but it doesn't really matter how much you say that unless there is some groundwork and foundation that you lay first to be able to follow through on that thing that you say that you want to accomplish. And this is not to call you out or say that it's a personal failure or shortcoming or anything like that, because plenty of people have trouble following through on the thing that they say that they want to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in business. Okay? So first and foremost, you're not the only one. There's plenty of people out there who need support from someone like me. And if you didn't need that kind of support, people like me wouldn't make a living. Or I'd have to figure out a different way to make a living because it wouldn't be doing this. Excuse me while I had to take a sip of water. But I was going to get on here and talk about, should you be writing a memoir? Because I had a conversation with someone last year who kept saying, I want to write a memoir, And then when we finally talked, it turns out actually her book is not a memoir. She thought it was, but it wasn't. I will talk more about that in a second. And then I was going to talk about how to prepare for a conference because it's the beginning of the year. You might be looking ahead at what conferences are available, like, AWP. I go to AWP every year. There's all kinds of different writing conferences all around the country. I talked to someone early at the end of last year who went to one in Hawaii. I've been once at least to one in Austin, Texas. And some are better known than others, and some attract more people than others. Like if it's in Hawaii, for example, yeah, who wouldn't want to go to Hawaii and have a couple days of like hanging out with writers and focusing on your creative life and being in a really beautiful locale all at the same time, right? Well, then I started thinking about, okay, let me back up here, because one of the other clients that I've been working with last year is someone who has been saying she wants to write a book. She's been working on it for years. She's working on it in fits and starts. And even when we started working together, she was like, okay, yes, this is going to be it. Finally, like we got the outline done. We did a nail your book outline session. We got the outline done. We're doing one-on-one Voxer coaching. She has the accountability. I'm checking in with her every week. And every week still there's something comes up. There's some reason, there's some excuse around why she hasn't prioritized her writing, why she hasn't made progress on her book. So I started thinking about, okay, what's going on here? What's going on with these women who say they want to write a book, even spend money, make an investment? Some of these women are not working with me over a long period of time. They're just doing like a 1 hour session here, a 1 hour session there. But still, they're spending money. They're getting some clarity. They're getting a little bit of direction. But then something still keeps them on taking action. What is happening? What's happening there? What's the breakdown? So I had to ask the question, okay, should you even be writing a book? Period. The first question to ask yourself is, should you be writing a book? And probably the answer is yes, because if you have this desire, this deep desire, and it's been something that has been calling to you for years. Sometimes I talk to women who want to write a book and they don't even know what their book is going to be about. They just have this desire inside of them telling them and compelling them that eventually someday they're going to write a book. What is that? Where does that come from? And if you have this desire, why can't you harness it and turn it into action? Got to make sure my computer is still doing okay here. Yeah, we're still recording. I obviously maybe should have checked all of this before I started, but easy. We're going for easy around here. We're not polished professionals. You know my shtick. If you've been listening to the podcast since I restarted things, you know what my spiel is around here. So why can't we harness desire and turn it into action? And, obviously we can say, well, because there's too many distractions, because I have all these other commitments, because I don't know what to do. There's whatever. We can come up with any story that we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better about why we haven't been able to do this thing. Yes, probably fear is a part of it. Fear around whether you'll be able to do it. So if you don't even start, you never have to face that fear. Fear about whether you have what it takes. Fear about whether you're a good enough writer. Fear about whether people are going to care what you have to say. Fear about whether people are going to criticize you for what you have to say, or criticize you and judge you for sharing your personal story. Criticize you and judge you for sharing about other people in your life. Because remember, we're talking about sharing true stories here. So even if you want to write a business book, a how-to book, a self-help book, in this world, I'm assuming that those type of books are still going to include your true personal story on some level, because those are the business self-help how-to books that resonate the most with readers in the first place. When they incorporate something of your own true personal story, that's how you draw the reader in. That's how you connect with your reader. That's how your reader says, oh yeah, I get that. Me too. She's someone I can listen to. She's someone who I can follow along and learn from because she's been there. And that's how you get someone to buy into to what you have to share with them, is by using your personal story. If you've been wanting to write a how-to business book, self-help book, and you're struggling, that's probably why. It's probably because there's some sort of resistance around and you haven't been wanting to visit the personal story aspect, and you're just kind of, you're resisting it, and you've been saying no, but actually that's where the story wants to go. Okay, so should you even be writing a book at all? Well, the answer is probably yes. Like I was saying, if you have this desire, if it's been in your heart and you can feel it deep inside of you, the answer is probably yes. So the question isn't necessarily, should you even be writing a book? The question is, why? Why do you want to write this book? What is that deep, compelling reason that is drawing you toward this particular form of communicating and sharing? And most of the time when I work with clients, they are not clear on that why. The why is usually around, well, that's because I want to expand my audience. Well, it's because I follow so-and-so online and that's the way they say to do it. Well, it's because I want to get more speaking engagements. And I know that if I have a book, I'll be more attractive to organizations to hire me as a speaker. Okay, these are not deep, compelling reasons to write a book. I mean, I hate to break it to you. The chances are that there's something much deeper that you haven't excavated yet and you haven't explored yet, or maybe you know it, like a little piece of you does know it, but you haven't allowed it to surface yet. So yeah, we're talking about doing this kind of deep inner work, soul level work, if you want to call it that. That's the journey I feel like I've been on lately, and I feel like I've been kind of bringing along some of my clients down that journey too, and they resonate with it. Because when we're talking about our true personal stories, there's always something compelling us to tell that story. And it's to benefit readers and to connect with readers. But guess what? There's also generally, I think I can safely say most of the time, almost 100% of the time, there's a reason that is going to benefit you as the author as well. And sometimes you have to start with that reason first. You need to write it just for yourself, and that's okay, and be okay with that. And then you come back around to it and you revisit it and you shape it for outside readers. And that's part of your process as the author. That's part of your own journey as a human being on this earth, coming to terms with the story that you have been given, and you're going to finally say, yes, I've been given this story for a reason and I'm going to use it. That is why I resonate so deeply with telling true stories. So that's where I start with my clients. And I have a whole process around determining those reasons, those deep, compelling reasons. I call it working your why. You got to find out why you want to write this book, and why, first of all, why you want to write any book, and then why you want to write this book. Because maybe you have more than one book in you and you have to do this process for every book. Because if you don't get clear on why this book, it's never going to happen. There's always going to be something that comes in and causes the resistance that you give into, because it's easy to give into that resistance when you don't know why this book even matters in the first place. Okay, so then once we have that, we work the why. And yes, I have a whole process for helping you get there. I'm actually about to do some of this vision questing with a group of women later this month in person in my home here in Sacramento. Not exclusive to writers, but there will be some writers in the group. So we will talk about it in context of books, but we will also talk about it in context of whatever type of creative work they are doing in their life, including just running their business. Because guess what? Running a business is creative work. It's you figuring out how to share a piece of yourself that you're good at and only you can do. It's you figuring out how to share that piece of yourself with the world in a way that benefits others, in a way that draws others in a way that allows an even equal exchange of energy, because all money is energy, right? So you are exchanging money with the person you're working with for the energy that you have to offer that's going to benefit them in some way. So it's you figuring out how to devise an equal exchange of energy to serve people. That is creative work, even if it's in the form of a business and not a book and not visual art and not performance art and not something that we would label quote unquote as art or creative. Running a business is still creative work. So I'm about to do that work with a group of women here in my home later this month, and I'm very excited about it because I'm collaborating with someone who I met just over a month ago, who's going to bring in the human design piece. I've mentioned human design on this podcast a couple times, where I'm recently learning more about my own energetic aura as a manifestor and what that means. And that's why I'm starting to use this language of catalyzing your creativity, because that is the purpose of the manifestor energy. The manifestor energy is meant to spark, initiate, and catalyze. So I am embracing that as my role in this world. That's why so many of my clients finish their book, and not only finish their book, but publish their book, because they have harnessed the catalyzing energy that I offer in our energetic exchange when we work together. That's how that works. And it feels really good to start talking about it in those terms, because it allows me to step into more of my authentic self. I've always been able to talk about, I have this innate ability to get things started and to take action. But guess what? Manifestors struggle with maintaining and finishing things. And yes, I do have that challenge. And that is by default of the way our energy works, because our energy takes a lot of, it requires a burst of energy to start. It's like, imagine lighting a match. There's all of that energy that happens right at the spark, or just turning on your car. You need a spark plug to turn the car on, to get the engine to turn over and to start the engine running. That's the manifestor energy. But manifestors don't have the same kind of energy that the generator human design aura has. That's the energy that keeps the engine running. I don't have that kind of energy. But guess what? I've been trying to operate in that energy for most of my life, which is probably a big part of the reason why my body started telling me, no, you can't operate like this anymore. And guess what? It resulted in a chronic illness. Okay, that's a whole other side note. I think maybe I need to have Nicole. Nicole is the name of the woman who I'm collaborating on this retreat with. I also have another friend named Ilona Pamplona, and I will try to remember to put her information in the show notes of this episode, because I met her in person at a conference a couple years ago, and she is the author of a book called Human Design Made Easy. So maybe I need to have an episode with one or both of them where we get more deeper into human design. Ooh, a human design for writers and authors episode. That needs to happen. Okay. So all of that to say, I have this process for walking you through coming up with a vision statement. We work the why by coming up with a vision statement, not just for the book, but for you as a writer and as an author. Okay, so you want to write this book. What do you envision this book is going to do for the world, for your readers, but also what is being an author and having this book published going to do for you? And getting clear on who you are as a writer, as an author, and what you want this book to be, that is essential for harnessing motivation and making forward progress. You're not going to make forward progress unless you're clear on that. And here's another perfect example. I was talking about, maybe I would have this podcast be focusing on how to prepare for a conference. Maybe I will go deeper on that topic in future episodes, but that's not the key issue here, because this idea came to me after I was talking with someone, a client who hired me for a 1-hour session. And she was about to go to a writing conference. And I said, okay, I want to use your 1-hour session to, half of it, let's talk about the book project and let's get clear on the book, because she's very unclear on what the book itself is. The other half I want to use, and let's just strategize and prepare you for this conference, because she's never been to a writing conference before. She had no idea what to expect. It was one of those conferences where you could pay a little bit extra and have a 15-minute meeting with an agent or an editor, and she had already done that. So I said, okay, let's use half of your 1 hour with me to strategize and prepare you for this conference. And so we did that. And I typed up a bunch of notes, and it was in a Google Doc, and I sent it to her after the session. And she goes to the conference, and she comes back, and I followed up with her, and I asked her, how did it go? I want to hear all about it. So she sends me this long email telling me about how she heard this from so-and-so and this from so-and-so. And she felt like her meeting with the editor was a waste of time. And, she talked to this agent, and this agent said she has to have a huge following and a TEDx talk and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm just reading this, kind of nodding my head and like not smiling, not smirking, but just like nodding my head knowingly, like, yeah, this is exactly what happens when, first and foremost, it was probably too early for her to go to a conference, because she has been struggling with this book for years on her own, and she still isn't clear on what the book is. And she knows very little about the publishing world. And so it was an overwhelming experience for her. It was like a fire hose. And we got on a call when she got back from the conference, and that's exactly what I said to her. I said, this doesn't surprise me. This is a very typical experience. If it's your first conference, it kind of feels like a fire hose and you come away overwhelmed. And this is what I try to do with my clients. I try to prepare you for these experiences, because the thing you need to do first and foremost is get clear on what your book is, and get clear on who you are as an author and a writer, and what you want out of this experience of writing and publishing a book, so that when you go to a conference like that and you're inundated with all of this information, and it's not just a fire hose of information. It's also a fire hose of information from people saying, you have to do it this way. You have to do it this way. Boom, 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 boom. Here are the steps you have to follow. Do this, do this, do this. When actually that's not the way it has to happen. And how do I know? Because of my own experience in the industry. No, I don't have my own book published yet, but I do have a manuscript that I've been querying, and I'm working on a second manuscript. But I have clients who have been published in all kinds of different ways: self-published, hybrid publishing, small press, academic press, and signing with an agent for a traditional deal. I have clients who have done all of that. It runs the gamut. So the question is not, how do you get published? The question is, how do you want to get published? And you can't even answer that question until you first have a clear idea of what your vision is, why you want to write this book, why you want this book to exist in the first place, and what you want this book to do for you. So if you are not clear on who you are as a writer, as an author, and you're not clear on this book and what you want out of this book, you are never going to be clear on the publishing path that is best for you. You need to have your why, you need to work your why, and you need to have goals in place that support your why, that support that vision. And those things help you inform the decisions that you make about what publishing path to follow. And if you start listening to some of the episodes that I have been doing with clients, you will hear them say this, because they each found their path based on the things that were important to them and to this book that they were writing and publishing. Okay, so secondarily, I hinted at this at the beginning of the episode, should you be writing a memoir? And this question came out of a conversation that I had with a client last year, at the end of last year, where she came to me and she kept saying she's writing a memoir, she's writing a memoir, she's writing a memoir, but she's a therapist. And she wants her book to help her client, to help people who can't work with her as clients. And I said to her, okay, well, that's not a memoir. Now, yes, you can use your personal story, and yes, you absolutely should use your personal story in a book like that, because you're going to talk about your own personal experience as the thing that helped you learn, inform your philosophy, learn the skills and tools that you're going to impart on the reader in your book. So yes, your personal story is essential, but it is not the primary driving narrative of this book. The primary driving narrative of this book is likely self-help, how to find your own path toward healing through the narrative of this book that will incorporate the author's personal experience and probably some modified client stories, because of course, when you're working with sensitive, private, confidential information, you can't share all the details of clients when you have that confidentiality agreement in that industry and in that realm. But you can write stories in ways that conflate real people into a single character and treat them like fictional characters on the page, camouflaging and modifying enough details so that it's not the actual exact person that you are talking about in real life. What I'm saying is there are tools and conventions of the genre to allow that to happen, because otherwise therapists would never write books, and we already know that there are plenty of therapists in the world that have written and published books using client stories. Okay, so when I started out this episode, I was thinking, okay, it was going to be about should you write a memoir, then supplement that with how to prepare for a conference. But actually, it's a much bigger question than that. And it's not even the question of should you be writing a book at all. It's why should you be writing a book? Why should you be writing this book? And once you can get clear on that, the fire will come. The driving force will come, because suddenly you will be motivated by the why that you have designed for yourself. And you will have this reminder of the reason, the deep, compelling, motivated reason that this book needs to exist in the world. Okay? And if you don't know how to get there, that's what I'm here to help with. So visit moretothestory.co/bookdiagnosis to book a 15-minute call with me, and we can talk all about this stuff. Obviously, 15 minutes isn't enough time to get deep on your vision, your deep, compelling reason why this book needs to exist in the world. But we can start there, and I can direct you toward the next thing that would be the best and most helpful path for you to move forward. And if you're already like, yes, I'm ready to go, I will be hosting in-person retreats this year. Visit moretothestory.co/retreats to get on the wait list, so you'll be the first to be notified of when those retreat dates are announced. And you know what? At the beginning of this episode, I totally forgot to say that this episode is brought to you by Cafe Santoro, my parents' boutique coffee roastery here in Northern California. And if you would like to get a sampling of that coffee, you can get 10% off your first order by visiting cafesantoro.com/Janna. I always recommend the decaf because it's the only thing I drink, and everybody tastes the decaf for the first time and thinks, oh, this isn't decaf. So if you don't believe me that it's the best decaf you'll ever have, head on over to cafesantoro.com/Janna and order a bag along with your regular coffee, because maybe you don't drink decaf that often. So get a bag of decaf, get a bag of regular, and let me know how you like it. A friend of mine recently was saying the same thing, like, oh my gosh, Janna, this coffee, decaf, I can't believe it's decaf. It's too good to be decaf. And she doesn't drink coffee that often because the acidity is like a digestive thing for her. But hey, I got cut off because my computer was running out of disk space, and so it stopped the recording on the video. I was able to finish the audio recording, so if you're watching this on YouTube, I know not very many people watch it there, but that's okay. The ending is going to be different from the ending of the audio, which is fine. It's just a few last minutes because I got cut off right in the middle of what I was saying about my friend who, because it's winter time, was giving herself the treat of having decaf coffee while it's dark and cold, and she wants to be cozy with a delicious warm beverage. And so she went and bought herself some decaf coffee from, I don't know where, someplace local or maybe even the grocery store. And she says to me, it's not as good. She says, Janna, I need some more of your parents' decaf because this stuff isn't as good. So don't take my word for it. Try it out for yourself and take the word of a friend. Maybe I should have her come on here and do a little ad spot for Cafe Santoro. And that's the end. That's all I got for you this time. So head on over to moreofthestory.co/book diagnosis for your free 15-minute call with me. moreofthestory.co/retreats if you would like to be on the wait list for retreats that are going to start happening later this year. And don't forget to check out Under the Gumtree at underthegumtree.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Janna Marlise. You can follow Under the Gumtree on Instagram at undergumtree. And of course, as always, the theme song was written and performed by Jeremy Maron. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. And I'll talk to you soon on the next episode of More to the Story.